The moment I first saw him, I had no idea my entire destiny was about to change forever. I was the daughter of one of Seoul's wealthiest families, raised in a mansion overlooking the Han River. And he spent his days deep underground, mining coal in the darkness. Society told us we should never have met, but love, I learned, transcends class, wealth, and even life itself. Today, this old woman will share with you a confession from 60 years ago. A story of forbidden love. It was 1964. I was 22 years old. My father owned one of Seoul's largest textile conglomerates. Our home sat atop Seongbuk Hill with a view of the entire city. I'd been educated abroad since childhood, trained in piano and French. We had drivers, housekeepers, gardeners. Everything in my life was carefully arranged to maintain dignity and status. Even my marriage had been decided. The son of my father's business partner, an elite doctor who'd graduated from Harvard. I didn't love this man, but I had no power to refuse. I was simply a doll, living the life that had been scripted for me. Then that summer, I was sent to a coal mining village in Gangwon Province for community service. It was a mandatory requirement before university graduation. The shock of arriving in that mining town, I can never forget it. Tiny shacks made of tin and wood, skies blackened with coal dust, people with skin darkened from years of labor. It's so different from my world. Fear and pity washed over me simultaneously. And that afternoon, I met him. I was working at the medical aid station near the mine entrance. Suddenly, sirens blared, and people started screaming. There had been a collapse in the mine shaft. Injured workers were carried in on stretchers, and one of them caught my attention, a man completely covered in black coal dust. Blood was streaming down his forehead, but his eyes were strangely clear. Even in his condition, he was waving others ahead, insisting they needed help first. I'll never forget that moment. I cleaned his wounds and asked his name. Kang Min-woo, 25 years old, son of a North Korean refugee who'd fled south. He'd been working in the mines since he was 16. His hands were covered in calluses, his fingernails permanently stained black with coal dust that would never wash away. But those hands felt strangely warm. When he found out I came from wealth, he muttered something about rich people playing at charity. Those words pierced my heart. But I wasn't angry. He was simply telling the truth. After that day, I couldn't stop thinking about him. The service program lasted 2 months. During those 2 months, I worked at the mining village clinic every day. And Min-woo, even after his injuries healed, he kept coming back. He said it was for wound care. But the wounds had already healed. We both knew it. It was just an excuse. One evening, he brought a small bouquet, wildflowers. He said shyly that he'd picked them from the mountain, that he wanted to give them to me. My heart raced. So many men had given me roses and jewelry over the years. but none of them had ever made my heart beat like this. Yet this simple bouquet of wildflowers, offered by coal-stained hands, shook my entire world. He told me I was different from others, that I didn't look down on the mining families. That night, for the first time, I felt ashamed of my privilege. We began meeting in secret after sunset on the mountain path behind the mines, where no one would see us. He taught me about the constellations, pointing to Cassiopeia. He said he'd survived by looking at those stars since childhood. They gave him hope that someday he'd escape the darkness. That's when I realized how small my world had truly been. The happiness didn't last long. One day, our driver rushed to find me. He said my father had heard rumors that I'd been seeing a coal miner. My world collapsed. I was forcibly summoned back to Seoul. I knelt before my father. He was furious, demanding I end it immediately. If I didn't, he'd make sure that man paid the price. I begged through my tears, but father wouldn't hear it. He accused me of foolish romantic notions, not understanding class and reality. That night, I was locked in my room. No leaving, no phone calls, like a prisoner. And a week later, I heard terrible news. There had been another accident at the mine. And in this accident, Kang Min-woo was critically injured. I fled the house in desperation. I forced our driver to take me there. When I arrived at the mining village hospital, Min-woo was unconscious. His body was wrapped in bandages. The doctor shook his head, saying his chances were slim. I collapsed right there. Then I overheard the workers talking nearby. They said this accident seemed strange. The shaft had just been inspected 2 days ago, yet it had collapsed, and Min-woo happened to be the only one in that section. Chills ran down my spine. Could it be my father? I called home. Father's cold voice asked if I could prove anything. Accidents happen every day, he said. Then he told me to come to my senses. My fiancé would be arriving next week. That day, I made a decision I'd never forget. Min-woo miraculously survived, but he was left with a permanent limp, unable to work in the mines anymore. When he woke up in the hospital, he held my hand tightly, but his eyes were filled with despair. He told me to leave, that he was now broken, that he didn't want to ruin my life. I cried and protested. How could I leave when the person I loved was hurt? I couldn't live without him. But he turned his head away. He begged me to go. This, he said, was his final act of love for me. That night, I broke down completely. My love, my pride, everything shattered. When I returned home, my wedding date had been set. 3 months away. I made my decision. I couldn't live this way. 1 week before the wedding, I abandoned everything. My home, my wealth, my status. In the middle of the night, I fled. I took a train to Gangwon Province. Just one bag with a few clothes and all the money I could withdraw from my accounts. When I arrived at the mining village, Min-woo was living alone in a tiny shack. When he opened the door and saw me, he froze. He asked why I'd come, told me to come to my senses, said being with him would destroy my life. I answered him. Life was already over. Without him, I needed nothing else. That night, we held each other for the first time, and we cried. We promised that, no matter how hard the world tried to separate us, we would stay together. The life that began that day was far more brutal than I'd imagined. I worked at the village general store. Min-woo, with his injured leg, took on odd jobs around town. We lived day to day, hand to mouth. When winter came, our shack froze. Our rice jar ran empty. My hands cracked with painful splits. My once fair skin became rough and weathered. One night, Min-woo held my hands and wept. He was sorry, he said, for making my life this way. I smiled and told him this was real living. For the first time, I felt truly alive. I meant every word. We were poor, but our love was real. A year later, I became pregnant, but my health deteriorated. Malnutrition combined with overwork. The doctor shook his head, saying both the baby and I were at risk. We had no money for the hospital. Min-woo ran all over town trying to borrow money, but no one would lend to us. Then a miracle happened. Min-woo's old mining colleagues pooled their money together. They brought us 500,000 won. Barely anything, but they'd gathered every bit they could. That money saved my life. The day I gave birth to our son, I lost consciousness. When I woke days later, Min-woo was holding our baby, tears streaming down his face. He told me in a trembling voice that if I hadn't woken up, he'd planned to follow me. 5 years passed. Our child grew healthy. We were still poor, but we were happy. Then one day, an unexpected visitor arrived. My father. Seeing father after 5 years, he'd aged so much. He told me to come home. I shook my head. I was already this man's wife, I said. Father looked at Min-woo and spoke. If he truly loved me, he should let me go. Was this poverty really love? Min-woo couldn't answer. Father pulled out a thick envelope. Enough money for a lifetime, he said. Just let his daughter go. Min-woo threw the envelope on the floor. He said firmly that money had never been why he loved me. Father smiled coldly and asked if we planned to live in this poverty forever. I knelt before Father and begged, "Please just leave us alone. We're happy," I told him. Father sighed and turned to leave. But at the door, he said one thing. One day, I'd regret this. And those words became reality. Min-woo collapsed. Years of breathing coal dust had destroyed his lungs. Pneumoconiosis. The doctor said he had a year at most. My world ended. Even from his hospital bed, Min-woo held my hand. He said meeting me had made him truly happy, that he had no regrets. I sobbed, crying out that it couldn't be, that I couldn't live without him, that the disease wouldn't wait. Min-woo grew weaker each day. One winter evening, as snow fell outside, he gripped my hand. In a trembling voice, he told me to live well without him, to raise our son well and be happy. I wailed. What was he saying? We'd promised to grow old together. He apologized. He was sorry for breaking his promise. That night, Min-woo closed his eyes in my arms. His last words were these: I love you, my star. After the funeral, I sat in a daze. The world felt completely empty. Nothing had meaning anymore. If not for our child, I would have followed him. But a week later, I found a letter in the mailbox. Min-woo's handwriting. He'd written it before he died. When I opened it, tears poured down my face. It started with my love. It said by the time I read this, he'd be gone. He was sorry for leaving me alone. But he had no regrets. He wrote, meeting me was the greatest fortune of his life. Though we were poor, our time together was heaven. He asked me to please be happy, to raise our son well. And if someday I could love again, to love, because I deserved to be loved. He'd watch over me even in death, he wrote. He'd always be by my side. The last line read, I love you forever. Yours, Min-woo. I read that letter and wept endlessly. After that, I raised our child alone. I worked at a restaurant during the day and cleaned offices at night. My hands blistered. My back ached, but I endured it for the son Min-woo had left me. Father came to visit several more times. He asked me to come home, even now, but I refused. If I went back, even my memories with Min-woo would feel tainted. Years passed. Our son went to university, served in the military, got married. I even met my grandchildren. Now, I'm an old woman past 80. I still visit that mining village sometimes. The mines are gone now, replaced by apartment buildings. But that mountain path remains unchanged. When I sit there and look at the sky, I see the stars Min-woo taught me. Cassiopeia, I can still hear his voice, telling me he survived by looking at those stars, believing that someday he'd escape the darkness. People ask me if I have regrets. After living such a hard life, don't I regret it? I smile and tell them, not once. Not a single moment of regret. I gave up my status, my wealth, my family name, but I never gave up true love. Those 10 years with him shine brighter than all my 80 years combined. Love isn't about conditions. It's not about what you have or where you come from. It's about how genuine your heart is. I was poor in money, but rich in love. The world tried to tear us apart, but we stayed together until the end. Even now, when I look at the night sky, I see him like a star watching over me. Minwoo, I'm living well. I'll come to you soon. Wait for me, my star.